You can fool yourself and everyone else, but you can't fool me. Yondu Udonta died on May 4th of 2017. Yondu was a man who was born into Cree slavery and was turned into a Cree warrior against his own will after being sold into slavery by his parents at a very young age. Yondu lived the beginning of his life fighting wars that weren't his, saving people that weren't his own, but he saved them regardless of that. Eventually, Yondu was released from his slavery by a man called Stakar O'Gord, and he and his new friend Stakar formed a group known as the Ravagers. The Ravagers were a superhero team which functioned for quite some time until they were eventually disbanded. But during their time, Yondu and Stakar worked together to save lives of those all across the galaxy. After their unfortunate breakup between Charlie 27, Martin X, Vance Astro, Stakar O'Gord, and Yondu Udonta, they all went their separate ways and formed their own Ravager clans. At this point, Yondu started living a life of crime and was not living up to the calling that he had been freed from earlier in his life. Yondu began taking random jobs, scrounging up as much money as he could get, and rounding up as many pirates as he could to work for him as they rolled across the galaxy, taking from people, working jobs that were not honest, and doing whatever they could to get by. Eventually, Yondu was hired by a man called Ego in order to find his son who was on Earth and bring him back to him across the universe. Yondu went and picked up Peter Quill, the boy from Earth, and went to take him to his father. But along the way, he found that Ego's goal with his son was not to be reunited with his son, but was to kill him. Now, Yondu found a fork in his life at this point where he could continue to work and make his money, or he could make an enemy but save a child's life. And that's what he chose. Yondu made the right decision. He blew off Ego, and he took Peter Quill as his own son. He raised Peter as best as he could, never having a father for himself, and made a lot of mistakes along the way. Eventually, Peter became part of Yondu's Ravager clan, and they worked together for a short time until the disdain between the two drove Peter away from Yondu. Peter went on a job that Yondu had sent him on, took an artifact worth a lot of money, and blew Yondu off rather than return to him and continue to work together. This led to Peter Quill meeting his friends Drax, Gamora, Rocket, and Groot, which eventually formed the very first Guardians of the Galaxy, in an effort to save the galaxy from the Kree leader that had once enslaved Yondu, Ronan the Accuser. They went ahead and they took down Ronan. Yondu and Peter met up a few times, but never really mended that father-son bond that they had. Eventually, Peter met his biological father, Ego, and was about to be taken over and killed as Ego tried to take over the universe with the help of his son Peter, until Yondu stepped in to help save the day with the other Guardians. Yondu met up with Star-Lord's friends, Rocket and Groot, and used his powers and ended up eventually sacrificing himself in order to save not only his son and his band of misfit friends that formed their Guardians team, but also the universe as a whole, from Ego and his universal power. Some of Yondu's last words to Peter as he sacrificed himself, floating away in space as Peter was safe with his jetpack and spacesuit. Yondu said to him, "He might have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy. He wasn't a perfect father. He made lots of mistakes. He lived a life of crime, raised his son in a life of crime, and that was almost the only thing that his life ended up being worth. Although he did redeem himself at the end. He took the struggles that he was raised in, all of the trouble that he lived in his life and was able to overcome, and he took all of it and was able to give back to the universe one more time rather than just die as a pirate. Yondu saved his son, the team, and the universe that day, and was able to allow the Guardians to continue doing their work, saving the universe day by day, from big things to little things. Yondu may not have been a great man, but he was a good one. He did his part and he did what he could in order to give back, even though it wasn't all the time. Yondu was a pirate who lived a life of money and fame that he could have continued to live for as long as he wanted. But instead, he decided to sacrifice his life for something bigger than himself. Yondu may not have had the voice of an angel, but he sure did have the whistle of one.